If a report by US-based cybersecurity firm Resecurity is true, the personally identifiable information of 815 million Indians is up for sale on the dark web. An X handle named as PWN0001 has advertised to sell the personal details such as Aadhaar and passport information along with names, phone numbers, and addresses for $80,000. So the question arises, from where did this hacker or group of hackers stole this data? Well, going by the reports and information available on social media, it originated from the Indian Council of Medical Research or ICMR. The threat actor has claimed that this data was derived from COVID-19 test records allegedly sourced from ICMR. As a sample file, the hacker has released the Aadhaar number, passport number, age, gender, and address of 400,000 people. By the time of filing of this report, there was no word from the government on this alleged leak. Neither denial nor acknowledgement. And this is not the first time that the people's personal data stored in government safe houses has allegedly been compromised. In December last year, AIIMS faced a malware attack. 7 servers of the Premier Institute holding the data of about 4 crore patients were said to be compromised. Services at the country's most prestigious medical institute were affected for about 13 days. A few months earlier, security research firm CyberX9 had claimed that call records of 20 million customers were leaked, but Vodafone Idea denied it. And this year, in June, data of scores of Indians vaccinated against COVID-19 was leaked on a Telegram bot. The government had later denied the leak, saying the CoWIN portal was completely safe. Every time such incidents are reported, Indian Computer Emergency Response or CERT-IN steps in to start the probe. But so far, no major organization has been penalized for data breach incidents. So that brings up the obvious question: who protects Indian citizens' data and where does the buck stop?
Of course, I think at the national level, we already have the position of the National Cybersecurity Advisor, which is constituted at the national level under the Office of the National, NSA. So he is responsible for overall the cybersecurity infrastructure and broadly the overall infrastructure in the country, both in the corporate and private domain. And he advises and reports directly to the NSA and to the PMO. So that hierarchy is there. It's just that we need to implement the mechanisms that are proposed by the legislation and do it quickly. And I think it's all the more necessary now after this current breach.
Under the new Digital Personal Data Protection Act of 2023, which has been passed by the Parliament but not notified yet, a Data Protection Board will be established to adjudicate disputes related to data breach. Under this act, the significant data fiduciaries will have to appoint a data protection officer. He will be the point of contact for the data principals who wish to raise a complaint against the data fiduciary. The act will allow the government to block content and impose hefty penalties on violators.
The most important thing is that the penalties in this act for any non-compliance or any non-compliance of putting in place consent mechanisms or even the impact of a personal data breach if an offense takes place wherein there is a breach of this nature or magnitude, there are very strong and heavy penalties which have been proposed, and the maximum being up to 250 crores, which is much more robust than what the current framework allows. And there are proper processes and procedures which are clearly identifiable so that you know when an organization has breached their obligations or is in violation of the act.
But experts are concerned about a few gaps in the Digital Personal Data Protection Act.
There is an exception on Section 29 of the Digital Personal Data Protection Act actually exempts government and government-owned entities or that are exempted from the provisions of the law. So that is where the concern lies, because most of these breaches are happening with or in relation to government-owned data or government-controlled data, and they have been kept out of the purview of the Digital Personal Data Act. And that's where I think the issue arises, because while in the corporate domain, or if the law is applicable, if there is a breach that happens to the corporate or the commercial, corporate entities, then there are very stringent provisions, penalties going up to 500 crores and stuff. But here in this case, since it's a government-owned entity, they have been kept out of the purview.
So, what should be done to protect the personal information of Indian citizens?
The scope of the legislation is actually broadened to cover government entities or government collected or handled data. But as of now, that's completely exempted. And I'm sure, as all of us understand and realize, that Indian government happens to be one of the biggest collectors and processors of data globally, just by the sheer size of it. And this leak actually proves that. And it also proves that the risk at which is involved, because if we exempt all government entities from this, then there could be a high chances of the breach happening and nobody being held responsible for it, or being liable for it. So that's I think one of the most important aspects of increasing the scope. And second is with regard to a very stringent and aggressive method and policy adopted by the government to ensure that compliance is done of the provisions, because the provisions themselves are very stringent. But it's just that they have to be properly implemented and ensure that people comply with those regulations that are proposed under the legislation.
Considering the amount of data that the government collects, the Digital Data Protection Act should be applicable for government entities too.
If you like this video, share it and subscribe to Business Standard. For more news, views and insights, log on to www.business-standard.com. Do also follow us on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Telegram and LinkedIn.
He's about to land his dream job. Business Standard.